The priest didn't know he was being filmed. What he did with the nun will shock you. When the abbot showed the priest a suspicious video recording, he was shocked to discover that cameras were tracking his every move inside the church. But the truth about what he was doing with the young nun shocked everyone. Father Georgy could barely remember the last time he had felt so sad. He had dedicated his life to the parish and his faith, but what had happened at this respected institution had forever tarnished the reputation of his faith and priesthood. The small town where he had spent the last years of his life had become a target for robberies, and even the church was not spared. When he discovered that criminals had stolen all the donations, Father Georgy decided to install several surveillance cameras in the building. He wanted to protect the money meant for less fortunate members of the community and ensure the safety of the nuns and priests who lived and worked in the church. Fortunately, Father Georgy knew a man named Frank Garcia, who worked for a security company. Garcia did a thorough and careful job, and Father Georgy finally felt safe again in the house of the Lord. However, he decided not to tell his fellow priests and nuns about the surveillance cameras inside the church. He only mentioned that he had installed a single device in the vicar's house to monitor their belongings. He didn't want them to feel watched while they prayed or found solace in the presence of the Lord. And since the footage would only be reviewed in case of another burglary, he felt it was unnecessary to mention the cameras at all. But as it turned out, they were all grateful for the news. Among the most appreciative was a young priest named Justin. Father Georgy tried not to show favoritism, but from the moment they met, he felt a special bond with this young man. Perhaps it was because he saw so much of himself in Justin. His mix of eternal optimism and untamed spirit made him a challenging figure for the priesthood, but he saw that the boy had a deep desire to learn and serve the community. Perhaps one day he would succeed. Father Georgy had spent his entire life serving this parish and had vowed to remain a minister there until his death. But his strength was fading, and he realized he needed to prepare someone to take his place. The congregation needed renewal. Even the old priest understood that the younger generation required a new approach to faith. With declining church attendance, the struggle between a life of faith and worldly pleasures was more real than ever. And right now, Justin seemed like the perfect candidate to take on the challenge the parish needed. Justin's situation coincided with the arrival of a group of new nuns. Among them was a beautiful young woman named Lisa. Father Georgy felt a strong desire to protect her, even before he learned about her past. It took Lisa a long time to build trust, but eventually she confided in him. Behind her bright eyes and shy smile was a girl who had grown up in an abusive household. Her father was a harsh man who barely understood his role in his marriage or his children's lives. The atmosphere at home was filled with anger directed at anyone who crossed his path. Lisa's mother bore the brunt of his rage until one day she packed her bags and simply disappeared. After her mother's disappearance, Lisa became the target of her father's fury and disapproval. Despite being seen as a carefree girl, she had to manage the household and look after her younger siblings. But then, a group of social workers knocked on her door and placed her and her siblings in foster care. Due to the significant age gap between them, she eventually had to leave. She was completely alone, with no one to protect or guide her. Lisa might have become a rebellious teenager, if not for the timely intervention of a schoolteacher named Sandra. This woman took Lisa under her wing and invited her to church. While her foster family did their best to provide for her physical needs, they could not help with her emotional struggles and broken heart. Miss Sandra, on the other hand, became a reliable shelter from life's storms. She had never married and was devoted to her faith. Her love for the church and liturgical music inspired Lisa to become a nun. She had little trust in men, but somehow she managed to form a relationship with her Creator. Father Georgy was the first man Lisa saw as a father figure. Since this wise priest played a key role in the lives of both Justin and Lisa, it was inevitable that the two young people would start spending time together. Fortunately, Father Georgy could keep a close watch on them and guide them in the right direction. Perhaps the fact that Father Georgy was too close to the situation blinded him from seeing the truth. Perhaps his deep love for these two young people made him ignore the warning signs. Whatever the reason, it was still a great shock when he finally faced the truth, a truth he likely hoped he would never have to confront. The security company monitoring the church's surveillance footage was owned by Frank. Frank and Father Georgy were old friends, and the preacher had very few people with whom he could speak openly. When Frank called Father Georgy that fateful morning, his voice was filled with distress. He urgently needed to meet the priest in his security office to review some recorded footage together. Father Georgy was puzzled. There had been no recent break-ins, and everything seemed fine. But Frank insisted that what he saw on the church's surveillance cameras was alarming and could seriously damage the faith and the parishioners. With fear and a heavy heart, Father Georgy made the long journey to the city. In Frank's office, the blinds were drawn and the door was closed for privacy. Frank warned Father Georgy that what he was about to see would likely leave him devastated. The compiled footage spanned about 2 months, showing movement in the church. While there was always a slight chance that the recordings could be misinterpreted, there was little doubt about what was happening when the priest wasn't watching. As Father Georgy drove back to the church, tears streamed down his face. He felt a mix of emotions, guilt, betrayal and anger. But there was also a strange sense of relief that he could hardly explain. Had his subconscious known all along, but refused to let him see the truth? When he arrived at the church, Justin was waiting at the gate, waving at him. With a solemn expression, Father Georgy instructed him to wait in the church office. Justin bowed his head and obeyed in silence. It was the hardest conversation Father Georgy had ever had. He could not deny what he had seen, yet he still asked Justin if what the camera showed was true. With his head lowered, Justin confessed. But before he could say more, Father Georgy ordered him to leave. The young priest had betrayed him in the most scandalous way. Justin was given strict conditions. He had to leave immediately without saying goodbye, be transferred to a remote community, and never contact anyone from this parish again. Heartbroken, Justin accepted his fate. But then Father Georgy spoke to Sister Agnes, the head nun, who confronted Lisa. Lisa nearly fainted when she learned that Justin had already left. She broke down in tears, realizing he had taken the punishment to protect their little secret. Desperate, she pleaded with Sister Agnes to reconsider. When Lisa finally told her the truth, Sister Agnes couldn't help but laugh. As it turned out, Justin and Lisa had been sneaking out at night, not for a secret romance, but to attend live heavy metal concerts in a local bar. Lisa had developed a love for this music, but felt guilty due to her religious upbringing. Justin had gone with her to show that it was harmless. Realizing his mistake, Father Georgy rushed to find Justin and apologized. That evening he even joined the two young people at the bar, where they all sang along to the music Lisa loved so much. Dear viewers, did Father Georgy do the right thing? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.